It's Platt, and today we have a holiday treat. That's next to Platt's Beer of the Week. So the particular beer we have today is Sam Adams Holiday Winter Ale. Comes to us from the fine folks, of course, at the Boston Beer Company. A little background on the Boston Beer Company. Founded in 1984 by Jim Cook and Rhonda Kalman. Cook is the sixth generation of the family to be in the brewing business, and of course he touts this a lot in the marketing. He started brewing in his kitchen back in the day. You've probably seen some of the clips and some of the Sam Adams commercials. He learned brewing something called Lewis Coke Lager. Apparently that was a family recipe, and he perfected it in the kitchen. Before he started the beer company, he worked as a manufacturing consultant, so he understood the whole supply chain and sticking points. He also understood outsourcing, which we'll get into later. The beer and the brand was named after the former president and founding father, Samuel Adams, who himself was a brewer. Of course, perfect way to introduce a patriotic beer like that is on Patriots Day, and that's what he did in 1985, Patriots Day in Boston. For those of you that don't know about Patriots Day, huge celebration each year in Boston. It's the day they run the marathon. The Red Sox usually have like an early, almost like a morning time game, like 11 o'clock their time game. Plenty of time for you to get out in time to make happy at the bar. So again, great day to release, a beer called Boston Lager. After that release, it gave them plenty of momentum, and it was 6 weeks later at the Great American Beer Fest that year that they won gold. The Boston Lager won gold for best beer in America. And the rest, they say, is history. Now, where the controversy and why a lot of hardcore craft people really don't like Samuel Adams is when they initially started, it was a contract brew. They contracted the Pittsburgh Brewing Company, the same people that make Iron City beer. And he has utilized contract brewing a lot since. Now, in 1997, they went ahead and started bringing some of that stuff in-house. They bought a brewery in Cincinnati that apparently Jim's father worked at. Apparently Jim was not from Boston. I guess he worked there before he started the brewery, but the family lineage, I guess, was from Cincinnati. Today, they do have an R&D brewery in Boston. It's a small brewery, kind of has that craft brewery feel, great for the tourists, stuff like that. Now, I remember them getting investigated by NBC. We're going to find them scoundrels that aren't really craft. And that was, I want to say, late 90s, maybe early 2000s, when we were starting to have this argument what craft was, and Anheuser-Busch started, buying pieces of stuff. I just find it funny that there was nothing else going on the planet right then to investigate. Let's talk about some of their beers, a massive line of beers. I couldn't even go into all their products. They've added, of course, the Truly Hard Seltzer line. I know they have a cider line. I can't remember the name of it right offhand, but they make a little bit of everything. First beer we'll talk about, of course, is that Boston Lager, 5% ABV. Kind of a hybrid, some people consider it Vienna lager, some will say amber lager. I'm more on the amber lager side just because when you hold it up, you'll get more reddish hues. When I think Vienna lager, I think something more like a Shiner Bock, which to me is a little more brown. Flavor-wise, so, we're splitting hairs there. Next is Cherry Wheat, 5.3% ABV. This is made with cherries from Michigan and real honey. If you want to make yourself something really nice, find you a good chocolate stout, maybe a chocolate milk stout, and do a half and half with the cherry wheat. It's called chocolate covered cherry, and to die for. Lastly is Sam Adams Utopias. This beer was released in 2002 and was just revolutionary at the time. At the time it came out, it was the most expensive beer on the market, and I think today you can find those bottles around $2.25 if they're available at all in your local liquor store. They were also at the time the highest ABV beer out there. They do an annual release, so it fluctuates every year, but they're generally in that 24-25% alcohol by volume range, and that's achieved just through fermentation. I've discussed on this channel several times about the other claimants to highest ABV beers, and I did the snake venom review. The beers that got into the 30s and 40% alcohol by volume, like what Brewdog was doing stuff, was through freeze distillation. That's how they were achieving that ABV. Snake venom and some of them that now have gotten into the 60s and 70%, those are fortified beers. Those have actual spirits added to them, so it really doesn't count. Well, before we try this particular beer though, let's check out stats. So time for question for Platt. If you have a question that you'd like for me to answer in a video, please send it to plattsboozblog@gmail.com and in the subject line put question for Platt. Today's question comes from Kay, and Kay asked, and this is in reference to one of my homemade wine videos where I use store-bought juice. And I add sugar to it, and she just basically asks, is sugar necessary, the additional sugar necessary? I get this a lot. People are, oh my God, that's so much sugar, diabetes, blah, blah, blah. And I've answered it, several times before, but this time I want to use kind of a better example, more concrete example that maybe people can kind of sink their teeth into. If you go to your liquor store and buy a generic bottle of red wine, white wine, whatever, you're generally going to be between 11 and 15% alcohol by volume. Now, I'm doing a video that's coming out around this time this video comes out on making wine with store-bought juice. There's a little more to it, and in it I do a gravity reading of the just standard store-bought juice, your standard purple Concord grape juice. The gravity comes out at 1065, which means if we get a good fermentation, we should get around 7% alcohol by volume, thus a gap. If you want to get into those low teens, 12, 13% alcohol by volume, you're going to have to add sugar. Now remember that yeast converts that sugar into alcohol. That's what you're wanting done. It's not converting sugar back into sugar. Now, if you've ever had a dry wine that finishes out, that sugar has been eaten up by the yeast. Now you can do things to back the yeast off and retain more sweetness, but all that sugar's not going into what you're final drinking. So hopefully that kind of crystallizes why sometimes sugar is added in the process, especially making homemade stuff. Well, enough about that. Let's drink a little holiday treat. Oh, that is nice. Little haze. It's a wit beer, classic for the style. A little more than a finger of really light, very, very light khaki the most, but pretty much white foam. You kind of smell some of those classic wheat beer notes, the citrus, you get like orange peel, stuff like that. Let's go in. Man, that is nice. A little lighter bodied than I was kind of expecting, but just real easy drinker. The flavors are subtle. I don't think it says here anywhere about coriander or anything, but that's kind of standard for this style of beer. But just real nice. Got that little citrusy, hit. This is probably good for, I've talked about it before. I love big, heavier, holiday beers, but, there's occasions on the holidays where you probably want something a little more drinkable, and this would really be nice. This is something I even think you could probably get some of your Miller Lite, Bud Light friends to even try. Plenty of effervescence, carbonation, light enough body. The hops aren't really present. It's a balanced beer, but so you're not dealing, again, the newbie drinker really didn't want a ton of hops. Just nice little citrusy flavor, a nice, really drinkable ale. Well, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please subscribe down below. Also, please like the video because it lets YouTube know we're putting out good content. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or ideas for videos, please leave them in the comment section, or you can always contact me on the Twitter page. Till next time, bottoms up.